Midwinter Massacre draws ever closer, and I am, as per usual, nowhere near prepared. But that doesn't mean I haven't been putting in the graft. All week I have been poring over Warcrier, theory crafting lists, nattering with the community and just putting things together to try and perfect the Order of Azyr in time for the event on the 13th of December. Links in the description if you want to attend. Heck, despite being ill for most of the last week, I even managed to get in a sneaky game on stream, and it was a good time, so we're going to talk about that too. Because the wonderful Wizard of Oz. Because Road to Gold stops for nothing, and this week we dive even deeper into the madness, so let's get going.
And now for something completely different.
If you've made it this far, then you are one of the very special viewers who have decided to watch more than 5 seconds before dipping out. Thank you for your time, but whilst you are here, please consider dropping a like, a comment, and even subscribing, as it helps me continue to do what I do. But if you want to help the channel out even further, then please consider joining my Patreon or my YouTube members, or using my Element Games affiliate link in the description down below. But with that out of the way, back to the show.
Groovy.
Last week I went over a whole bunch of lists. All of them were interesting. Heck, all of them, at the very least, really bloody good. But what took me by surprise was the eagerness of the community to get involved and suggest new ideas, whether these be whole new lists or specific allies or mechanical themes to investigate and just try out. This is the core of Road to Gold, getting people involved and coming up with something that we all work together to solidify. I have 2 list ideas that have come through that I really want to talk about, and 1-ish new ally option that could be the source going forwards. Let's dive in with friend of the channel Appleheart reached out and suggested that I take a look at Vanguard, as one of the only players that I know, along with Alex, who are dedicated to Vanguard. He knows what sings, and he suggested looking at the Farstriders. The Farstriders are slow and short-range Vanguard who come packing high wounds and toughness, solid 4-4-2-4 melee profiles, and a 3-4-1-4 ranged profile. Basically, I am adding 74 toughness 5 wounds and a potential of 18 extra shots and even more melee attacks. Not only that, but Sanson is a bit of a beast, as they get to move all the Farstriders on a triple, opening up some action economy play, which is the sauciest, the sneakiest kind of play. Of course, taking 3 Farstriders means I do have to make cuts somewhere, and this means dropping things like Varentia, Lysa and Duralia, but we still get to keep our big hitters like Pock, Armand and Hanover. Not only that, all 3 of those can still be blessed. Strength on Pock, Strength on Armand and Crit on Hanover, so we can still go full casino mode in melee. On paper, this looks really good, seriously strong even, especially when compared to the general squishiness of Order of Azyr. The Farstriders being great in melee and ranged and when moving makes them hyper versatile in a warband that consists of disparate one-note pieces, which fills many gaps in their lineup all at once, and I am a big fan of that. Next up we have following on and expanding the wonders of the Lord Imperatant, who in theory is a great pick due to being able to make people shoot more. A common suggestion has been the wonders of Calthia Zandia, but not just Calthia and Luxa Stormstrider. So Calthia is basically a Lord Imperatant with more abilities, worse stats overall, but a lot cheaper. This means more shots more of the time is a thing at a discount, and Luxa is one of her Bladeborn, who is also a solid archer, rocking a 2-4-2-4 range attack and a passable melee attack for 170 points. Together, that's not a bad package, but Luxa also comes with the ability to mark a target. That mark target, when attacked, gives the attacker +1 attack, and this also applies to range attacks. It even applies to Luxa herself in some situations. Basically, imagine a hyper-focused fight for profit with none of the activation downsides of needing very specific scenarios and missions to actually make it work. All that being said though, this ability to mark targets is a triple, however, which means Calthia and Luxa are adding 2 more triples to a warband already overflowing with triples. But it does mean that on those rare double triple turns, I can use Luxa to mark someone, then use Calthia to get people to shoot that thing for free, getting even more shots off, therefore getting even more value, or more commonly using Calthia for those high triples and Luxa for those low triples. In any case, this isn't a bad idea, and whilst no lists were suggested with Calthia and Luxa, I have cobbled one together so we can take a gander at it. Badoosh. So as you may have noticed now, the core lineup for Order of Azyr is coming together. It's always Hanover leading the charge, with Pock and Armand as our main damage dealers. We then add dogs for numbers and the rest of Order of Azyr as and when we can. As long as we hit 8 models at the very least, we are good. And if we can bless, then we are doing even better. In this case, we don't have the points left over to go full casino with that +1 crit on Hanover, but we can bless Pock and Armand, and that is the bare minimum we need for blessings to make this kind of list work. This list has far less on paper ranged than the Dakka Farstrider list, but it does have more freedom to manipulate out of activation actions and get our best guns firing more often, or at the very least getting our best guns in range to then fire more often. If Calthia can hit Pock, Armand and Luxa with a coordinated strike, we are eating well. If Luxa can get Pock, Armand and herself to fire a bit extra on that low triple, we are also doing well. My only concern is that this list feels a bit one note, and it doesn't have the versatility of profiles to make up for the gaps in the lineup. In theory though, it should be pretty swanky in practice if I want to go all out on that shooting. I say all out, but then we have this list. The last list we're going to natter about is an extension on last week's suggestion by Heinz D using Caradon and more specifically utilising their rather fantastic Admiral. We go something like this. The list hits 8 man and it simply has all of the guns, and all of those guns are blessed for maximum carnage. The list also adds in some new guns to play with, namely Bjorgen Thundrik and Enric Ironhail. These are high impact weapons due to either raw volume or raw quality. We can also swap an Enric Ironhail for a Deadeye Lund if we want, which gives us a more reliable shot, but this shot has less of a damage ceiling. In either case though, it's pretty good to go. Garrett Allenson adds a cheap 14 wound chaff model with their pistol, which is always good, and of course we have Fight for Profit. Fight for Profit means we can rock with a +1 shot on all of our guns near Bjorgen, assuming we are on an objective or Bjorgen is holding a treasure. And when we get that buff, my god, the damage on this list, it just skyrockets. We are talking 4.525s, 3.536s, 4.523s, 7.313s, 3.524s, and 3.525s. I mean, that's just a list of numbers, but if you add all those numbers together, it sounds like a good time to me. The issue is, all of our eggs are in this basket, even more so than the Calthia and Luxa list, because at the very least, Calthia and Luxa can fight in melee to some degree, but nothing in this list bar Hanover has any way to defend themselves if something gets into our guns. If that ever happens, I am basically boned. Not only that, despite all of the potential power, this list is heavily reliant on there being objectives or treasures. If there are neither, then our damage tanks due to Fight for Profit no longer working as I want it to. The times when this will happen is always in kill missions where we need our damage at its highest, so it's a real concern that this list is pure on paper madness, but in practice could be way too susceptible to outside forces just messing with it. Is it better than running an Admiral? Maybe in some situations, but Admirals are by far the safer option. So those are the 3 lists that I have been poring over this last week. It's time to get them into the crucible of battle. It's time to test them against a real opponent and get out of this tactical vacuum. Now, due to illness, time and more illness, 3 kids and a wife all circulating the same illness is a nightmare. I was only able to get 1 game in, but the game was a great one and it was against friend of the channel and frequent opponent, JoePaintsSometimes and his Dark Oath. As a matchup, it's pretty darn interesting because Dark Oath also lack a trait, so we are operating under the same nonsense Games Workshop forgetting we exist, and that we need more rules to function like everybody else. In this game, I ran the Dakka Farstriders as this was a stream game and chat voted for them, and Joe ran the following Badoosh. Joe's list is kinda spooky because Nadia can deal catastrophic damage from relative safety. Singri has arguably the world's most ridiculous range profile, sometimes, and Spite Spawn, supported by a toughness sapping Demon Smith, can also lead to some pretty darn rough times in melee. But we have a lot of guns and his lads aren't the hardest to kill. The mission was from the new Matched Player Battle Pack, and it basically boiled down to a kill mission with a secondary that required us to hold table quarters, so it was very straightforward. For deployments, I deployed with Sanson and Elias in one group, dropping near his War Queen and her Marauder mates, and Hanover, Pock and a Jog drop close to a Demon Smith, a Spawn and Nadia. So basically, all of our really scary stuff was on the board and ready to go immediately. I managed to take the initiative, and since Pock was in a little bit of danger from Nadia's wizard build and ability, I decided that I should just go all out and just shoot her until she died, and sadly she didn't die. She did take 9 damage in total, but I also popped Explosive Bolt, doing 3 damage to everybody else. This leaves Nadia on 6 wounds, which is very much in killing range for next turn, so she's alive, but she is hurting, and thankfully Nadia completely whiffed her ability on the counter shot there, dealing only 3 damage, and that damage was directed at Hanover Toll. On the other side of the board, the Farstriders worked together to gun down 2 Marauders because rolling an ungodly amount of 6s over 12 shots is hilarious, so I did like 28 wounds on like 20 wounds of guys, so they died, and in return the War Queen just sprinted directly into combat to engage them and hopefully to blend the Farstriders on a later turn. The Chaos Spawn moved towards the centre of the board, and me being a little bit silly, I sent Hanover over to try and land the one-hit kill on turn 2. This likely isn't worth doing, and generally Hanover should be playing less aggressive and more defensive, but I saw an opportunity for a bit of fun, and I took it, and I am sure I will not regret that later on. My dog moved to hold a quarter, and his Demon Smith did a little bit of whiffing, and that ended turn 1. All of our remaining toys come on the board with Singri and a Mook for Joe, an Almond, Almeric, and a dog for me. I managed to go first and had a 666, so I popped Brand of the Righteous and largely whiffed. Sadly, I got 1 crit and 1 hit on 8 attacks, dealing a whopping 14 damage still, but the Spawn, of course, with his 30 wounds, the Spawn lived. The Spawn then turned around and tore Hanover in half because Spawn are really good at killing toughness 3 things, scoring Joe a whole bunch of points on kill because in this mission when heroes die, they score many points if they die earlier in the game, and it's only turn 2. Thankfully, Pock returned the favour by killing Nadia. Elias dropped his last Marauder to 1 wound, and Almeric and Almonds took chunks out of the Demon Smith. I think they even killed him. If not, they killed him right at the start of turn 3. I can't quite remember the order of his death, and in the end that deployment group kind of does nothing for the rest of the game bar hold quarters, so killing the Demon Smith is their one achievement. Sanson disengages from the War Queen because Sanson doesn't want to get attacked 10 times by the War Queen hitting on 4s, so he disengages, takes some shots, gets engaged, and the War Queen thankfully does a bit of a whiffer. Rather importantly though, that 1 wound Marauder, yeah, he takes a runner and gets into combat with Elias and just stands there. And it's kind of scary. We'll see why that is in a little bit, but he's kind of spooky. A lot of the Dark Oath warband is dead or dying, and the game is very much in my favour, but also nearly all of his raw stats are still alive and well. I've killed a lot, but a lot of the things that I've killed aren't massively impactful. Pock goes first though and takes a shot at the Spawn, hoping to chunk him right down to get him closer to death, but he does a little bit of a whiffer and only does 3 damage. The War Queen and the Spawn get in eventually. They start attacking Sanson. They chunk Sanson something rotten, but Sanson manages to take out the Spawn in return. I delay heavily with Elias because he's engaged with like a 1-wound Marauder, right? So there's no rush in killing that Marauder. Surely this will not bite me in the arse. Turns out this was the biggest mistake of the game because that Marauder swung 8 times and landed like 7 crits, killing Elias instantly. So Elias dies, and then Singri rolls up, pops her double to gain to become oathed, and then shoots Sanson in the back of the head, killing Sanson as well. So 2 out of the 3 of the Farstriders die, and now Singri is fully buffed, and that 1-wound Marauder is still alive. Despite the madness of turn 3, turn 4 is fairly uneventful. We do some dancing around and nothing really happens since we are so far away from each other, with the lone exception of Singri, who is now fully buffed and fires 18 shots. 18 shots from one model at an 18-inch range is wild. So Singri obviously immediately kills Park and kills a dog, scoring a whole bunch of points, and the game ends, and despite a very strong start, Joe managed to claw back on the scores, but in the end though, because I had control over the quarters for most of the game because my warband was bigger and largely faster, I managed to hold on for a win with only a 2-point advantage. And overall, this game was great. Joe is a great player, and as is often the case with our games, the dice were insane for both players. I think this will sadly skew my opinion of this list a little bit, since the Farstriders did crazy damage thanks to crits galore, but they also died incredibly quickly, things that really shouldn't have given them all that many issues. That being said though, the list did feel great to play. There was a nice mix of range and mobility, and the comfort of having 3 Stormcasts providing raw bulk certainly let me play more aggressively than I normally would do with Order of Azyr. This did bite me in the arse a little bit with Hanover, who really should have been peppering the Spawn with bullets and getting into combat when he was more supported, but the greed overtook me, something I do need to rein in when I eventually take him to an event. Last week, he one-shot a Fiend and I got cocky and got killed by a Vexmore. This game, I got cocky again and got killed by a Spawn. I can play better, I should play better. Hail Mary Hanover plays are fun, but relying on them is not exactly wise. I bled a lot of points with that blunder, and I don't want to make that mistake again. With all that being said, I do think that this list has real potential to be the list that I take, but it's still a little bit too early to say that for sure. One of the key things I really like about any list is that how effectively can I kill your chaff, right? If I can kill your chaff effectively, then I can gain a model advantage and then I can win the mission easier. This works into nearly every warband, elite, horde, and mid-range, and specifically against horde, where horde tends to dominate most matchups in general. Being able to gun down 2 or even 3 models per turn really is the goal, so they can't just resurrect them, because of course most horde warbands also come with some sort of model regeneration or model resurrection, so being able to pop off many models per turn is the goal, and I think the Dakka Farstriders can really do that because they can do that at range. But again, the Dakka Farstriders are really good in melee. They're all 4-4-2-4, so into Hordia warbands, they can just get in there and start blending in melee, which again is to say that the Dakka Farstrider list could actually be the list. It felt really good, it ticks all the boxes I wanted to tick, and I'm quite excited to put it through its paces just a little bit more. It's a very exciting list. Battle report aside, over the last week I've also been poring over the lists and ideas that I have come up with or that have been given to me, and I have come to some conclusions that have me concerned. Namely, as I'm sure you can gather from the Bjorgen list, I am concerned about putting all my eggs in one basket and that basket being toppled over due to mission selection or just a bad matchup. While I can't throw every idea out based on a negative, as every list will have its negatives, I think it's best to iron out the kinks where I can, and one of the kinks is just dealing with big things, big smashy beaters that I simply don't have the tools to deal with in faction, bar getting lucky or taking something like Valius. A common solution is of course to run a net, of which there are very few in order, and unfortunately, unlike Chaos, our nets are kind of ass. Nothing gets my blood boiling like a net missing when I absolutely need this to bail me out of a bad situation. In general, if I can get a net on a cheap model in faction, like say in Sylvaneth, then I will take them, but I am far less enamored paying buckets of points and taking up an ally slot which has a 1 in 3 chance of failing. So my solution has really become don't take nets and avoid that scenario entirely and focus on other things. Like, how do you deal with big things? Well, you kind of just ignore them and kill the little things around them and then hope that's enough to win the game whilst playing cagely to avoid being beaten to death. That is one way of doing it. Is this the best thing to do? Maybe not, but I also always have that fallback of Lysa to reduce people's attacks, and that actually might just be the solution as well, right? Like, if I can take Lysa, and if they have a big thing, tangle them up, right? Make them kind of a wet noodle and hope that's enough at key turns, at key turning points of a game to let me then escalate elsewhere and win the game. But I think taking nets as a solution when that solution is so fickle and it can fail, and when it fails, you've not only failed to net, but you've also you've lost all your tempo for that turn, right? You're sacrificing a more impactful play by a more impactful model to throw this net, and if that net fails, you've lost tempo, you've lost your actual impact for that whole activation on a complete whiff. And when you've paid like 170 points to even, if you go crazy and you take the Bloodrack Medusa as your net, and that fails, she's like 250 points or whatever, right? You give up a lot of points, you give a lot of tempo, and that never feels good. I always feel a seething hatred for nets if I'm not playing True Blood. It really is True Blood or nothing for me when it comes to nets nowadays, and I can't take the True Blood in order, so I think nets are out as a general thought process, and it's time to focus on something else. So those are my current thoughts. Let me know in the comments down below if you think those thoughts are on point, or if I'm missing something there, but that's currently where I'm at. Now, despite cutting some ideas, I have got more ideas to add to our list of ideas. And firstly, we have Domatan is a high durability, high speed, high strength wizard, and all those things are things I want to see more of. More guns are good. More guns on durable bodies are great. He's also not that expensive at only 200 points. And he comes with one of the things that Order of Azyr lack, a powerful quad. Domatan has one of the most devastating quads in the game, being a high damage, large AoE explosion called Electrokinetic Blast or something. If things go your way, Domatan can clear entire deployment groups in an instant. If you are positioned poorly, he can wipe out more than half of your warband. That might sound like hyperbole. I have seen this happen to some of the best players in the world. They've clumped together too much, and then a Domatan got a quad 6 and nuked like 3/4 of their warband, winning the game instantly. And frankly, that back pocket comeback mechanic is quite appealing on a model as solid as Domatan, and he's really starting to convince me on paper that he might be a really good inclusion in the Order of Azyr. Luxa Stormstrider was a great shout earlier in the video, as she let me pick a model and amplify my damage output even at a range. The issue with Luxa is that she comes with a 210 point admission fee, since you need Calthia to take her outside of Thunderstrike. This isn't the most efficient thing to do, but we can instead take the Vigilo Prime, who does offer the same ability, comparatively on the cheap. And by cheap, I mean they are actually quite expensive, but they do rock a 3.424 shot at a very long range. More guns are always good, but I am a little bit concerned that for that price, the Vigilo just might not be worth it despite the raw stats and the support aspect in that kit. Similar to Domatan, the Knight Arcanum is a durable Stormcast wizard, but where Domatan grants a powerful quad, the Knight Arcanum adds a powerful double, another thing Order of Azyr tend to struggle with. Dropping some single target burn at a solid range makes the Knight Arcanum a really cost efficient nuke for dealing with chaff or just piling reliable damage onto bigger things from a safe distance. What if the Vigilo Prime had no support abilities but dealt way more damage? That is the Castigator Prime. 3.524 with Tearing Bite on a triple means that this guy can delete something from miles away, or put massive amounts of damage onto bigger things. It is another triple for the lineup of triples, and it's a very selfish pick as it doesn't directly support the cause, but the raw damage is unmatched for single target blasting. The Vigilo Prime has a great range damage multiplier, but what if we could get that effect on a model at half the price? And that's where Mayari comes in. She's a standard wizard but comes with a triple to grant +1 attack and another triple to add durability to your team in a pinch with a big old -1 attack aura. Honestly, she's probably the model that has most caught my attention, even if I don't particularly like the visual design of the Lumineth. That's where proxies come in. We could go even cheaper and take a high Sentinel, but that lad is a wet noodle in every single stat, and I'd rather have impactful rules on impactful models if I can, and Mayari having a full powered wizard bolt and all these abilities and still being fairly cheap, well, she ticks all those boxes straight away, and the high Sentinel really doesn't. So far, the Farstriders, Domatan or Mayari are really in the top running for a final list, in addition to that Caradon Admiral list as well from last week, but more testing is of course required. But that's the end of all the new ideas flowing through the old dome, and of course that means it's also the end of the video. If you liked what you saw, let me know in the comments down below, and if you have any ideas on how to expand Order of Azyr, let me know as well. And whilst you're down there, be sure to hit like and subscribe, as that helps the channel out immensely. But until next time, lads, ladies, and everybody in between and beyond, ta-ra. Hey old toast here, and welcome to the post-toast credits. A massive thank you to all of my patrons and members who helped to make this channel possible, but an extra special shout out to all of my algorithmic demon slayers: Andy Morris, Brioche, Brioche 2, Electric Boogaloo, Blah Blah Blah, Heinz D, The Houston Toad, Lord Phylax, Mad Mars, Martin Spoon, Paulo Fernando Concleves Perez Fajio, Sable Saber, Skirmish Studios, Steve Bean and Velas. Thank you for your continued support, and I'll catch you all next time.